A chuirde, Bhualam ar son na hoscoile, fáiltear chu roimh go léir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Professor Lisa Looney, and I am the Vice President of Academic Affairs and Registrar at DCU. On behalf of the University, I would like to welcome you all to today's honorary conferring of Dublin City University. A Chancellor, a Uachtarán na hoscoile, a réamh céimeaní unig, agus a chuirde go léir. Bhualam fáilte anmhór a chur roimh, chuig an ggócharam seo, chun gradam unig a bhronna, ar Annette Kennedy agus ar Vivien Lusted. Chancellor, President, honorary graduates, honoured guests, I would like to welcome you all to this convocation of the University to confer honorary doctorates on Annette Kennedy and Vivien Lusted. Inis, Bhualam dina eile anseo chur I bhur láthair. I would like to introduce to you my colleagues who will be involved in the ceremony. We are very pleased to be joined by Dr. Martin Micheál, Chancellor, Professor Dara Keogh, President, and our honorary graduates, Annette Kennedy and Vivien Lusted. We are also joined by our citators, Dr. Daniela Leywald and Dr. Denise Proudfoot, both of the School of Nursing, Psychotherapy and Community Health at DCU, by members of the Governing Authority, members of Academic Council, members of the Alumni Council, by deans of faculty, academic staff, and by all of our guests and family and friends of our honorary graduates. Tá áthas orm an Dr. Martin Micheál, Chancellor na hoscoile, agus cathaoirleach Ciste Ceannas na hoscoile a chur in aithne daobh. I have pleasure in introducing Dr. Martin Micheál, Chancellor of the University and Chairperson of the Governing Authority.
Good afternoon, everyone. You are all very welcome to this special conferring ceremony in which Dublin City University honours the achievements of two exceptional Irish women, Annette Kennedy and Vivien Lusted. Each of our honorees in her own unique way has brought distinction to that noblest of professions, the nursing profession. Almost a year ago, on the 6th of June 2020, DCU conducted its very first virtual conferring of graduates. As it happened, they were from the School of Nursing, Psychotherapy and Community Health. And of course, that was in the year that marked the 200th anniversary of the birth of Florence Nightingale. Little did we imagine then just how disruptive and difficult the year ahead was going to be, and how the COVID global pandemic would impact so relentlessly on our daily lives. In the war against that insidious disease, it was members of the medical and nursing profession who became the front line of our defence. The demands made on them, physically and emotionally, have been grueling, and of course they still are. Yet they have worked selflessly, putting patients first, inspiring and challenging the community to keep on doing the right thing, the unselfish thing, the caring thing. Ireland's nurses have been inspirational in ways we could never hope to count or indeed to comprehend. They deserve our warmest thanks, individually and collectively, and that is why it is such a pleasure to share this day with Annette and Vivien. Annette Kennedy is the current president of the International Council of Nurses, a federation of more than 130 national nurses associations, representing well over 20 million nurses worldwide. Time and time again, her outstanding abilities as a first-class leader, administrator, and consensus builder have been tested in what is surely a very demanding international role. She has earned a reputation as a healthcare visionary and innovator, and we salute her as a worthy ambassador for the nursing profession and role model for all student nurses. After graduation, Vivien Lusted worked in Beaumont Hospital for a year before heading off to join Concern in Cambodia at the age of 22. Since then, most of her working life has been spent in armed conflict zones and disaster areas, places most of us would run a mile from. But Vivien made huge personal sacrifices in order to serve the needs of the suffering and the neglected in the world's poorest and most dangerous regions. She is a witness to the highest levels of goodness and decency that human beings are capable of. If the world had more Vivien Lusteds, it would be a much better and a much healthier place. These two outstanding women have done their profession proud and Ireland proud. They stand in the most remarkable way for the empathy and self-sacrifice that is demanded by care for the suffering and respect for human dignity. They showcase the best qualities and the sheer power of good leadership. And so it's a privilege today to show them our respect and our admiration by awarding them the highest honour our university can confer. Thank you.
A chóirde, chuireann acht na hallscoileanna 1997 ar chumas na hallscoile céimeanna an óracha a bhronna. Is í an doctoracht le fáilsúnacht an Honoris Causa, an honor is orde a bhrunnan an nullscoil. The Universities Act 1997 empowers the university to confer honorary degrees. The Doctor of Philosophy, Honoris Causa, is the highest honour which the university bestows. I now invite Dr. Daniela Leywald, School of Nursing, Psychotherapy and Community Health, to read the citation for this award to Annette Kennedy. Following this, Dr. Denise Proudfoot, School of Nursing, Psychotherapy and Community Health, will read the citation for Vivien Lusted. The President of Dublin City University, Professor Darragh Keogh, will then confer the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Honoris Causa, on both candidates.
I am delighted to read the citation for Annette Kennedy. Annette has always been a leader, from her days as nurse tutor to her current position as President of the International Council of Nurses, representing over 20 million nurses in 130 countries worldwide. Her approach to leadership brings to mind the well-known Irish expression, roughly translating to, "There is no strength without unity." Indeed, her watchword for her term as ICN president is "together." As she told nurses in a recent ICN address, "Together we can change the world." Her leadership was already apparent in the 1980s as a registered nurse tutor at Beaumont Hospital, where she established the first neuro-ICU and where she set up many of the hospital's post-registration specialist training programs for nurses. Later, Annette took up the post of Director of Professional Development with the Irish Nurses and Midwives organization. There, she was central to the establishment of the Professional Development Centre for Nurses and Midwives. She also advocated for the introduction of third-level nurse education and worked to achieve lecture-grade pay for nurse teachers. In 2005, Annette moved to a larger stage, becoming the president of the European Federation of Nurses, representing nurse professionals in 30 countries. During this time, she was highly effective at engaging with members of the European Commission, the European Council of MEPs, a skill that promoted the cause of European nurses and their patients. In 2017, Annette was elected 28th President of the International Council of Nurses, following a 4-year term as Vice President of the ICN. Here too, we see how Annette's exceptional ability to advance the cause of nurses and nursing is based on her skill for building productive professional relationships with a wide spectrum of people and stakeholders. A perfect example is the partnership she has developed with World Health Organization Director General Dr. Tedros. Thanks to Annette's influence, Dr. Tedros appointed the first WHO's Chief Nursing Officer, and the organization commissioned the State of the World's Nursing Report. Annette has proven herself to be persuasive when advocating for nurses and with health ministers and political leaders worldwide. Importantly, she takes the time to talk with and listen to young nurses wherever she goes, and she brings their input to debates on health policy at the highest level of decision making. If you consider all of her achievements and then add in her advocacy for gender equality and her global health policy work on issues such as non-communicable diseases, it is perhaps no surprise that in 2020, Women in Global Health named her as one of the world's 100 outstanding women nurse and midwife leaders. It is a status that Annette has truly earned over several decades of exceptional leadership and tireless work for nurses and for nursing in Ireland and around the world. On Uachtaráin, I ask you to confer on Annette Kennedy the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
My name is Dr. Denise Proudfoot, and I'm delighted to read the citation for Miss Vivien Lusted. On the front line of the health service, nursing demands skill, strength, empathy, and expertise. On the front line of a conflict zone, nurses face a whole set of additional challenges. It demands nurses with real courage, nurses of infinite practicality, nurses with a passionate commitment to healthcare and human rights, nurses like Vivien Lusted. Vivien possesses all those qualities and more. She has been rightly recognised at international level for 3 decades of extraordinary work, caring for some of the world's most vulnerable and disadvantaged people at their time of greatest need. Vivien is originally from Loughrea in East County Galway. She completed her general nurse training in the Richmond and Beaumont hospitals, where she got her first job as a nurse. However, she'd always dreamed of working as a nurse abroad. Her first post was with the Irish humanitarian organisation Concern in Cambodia, where she worked for 3 years in a primary healthcare setting. Her next post was with the Irish Red Cross, seconded to the International Committee of the Irish Red Cross. She has stayed with that organisation to this day, working as a health delegate and health coordinator across no less than 18 countries. It is in conflict zones in countries such as Somalia, Sudan, Israel, Nigeria, Sri Lanka, Liberia and Iraq that Vivien has made a particular valuable contribution. In Iraq, she worked as a nurse in temporary detention centres during the war in Mosul. She describes her approach to such work as not so much thinking outside the box, but there is no box. She is known for her great resourcefulness, for advocating for people in her care at the highest governmental and ministerial level. It was her work on behalf of prisoners in Iraq that led Vivien to being awarded the Florence Nightingale Medal, the highest honour for Red Cross nurses. Vivien is just one of 5 Irish nurses to receive this award since it was established over a century ago. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought a range of new challenges in humanitarian nursing work and highlights the persistence of health inequalities in many countries. Vivien's leadership and advocacy as a health coordinator are more important than ever. Through her leadership, courage and tireless work, she is one of the great ambassadors of the Irish Red Cross, the wider Red Cross movement and Irish nursing. A Uachtarán, I ask you to confer on Vivien Lusted the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
Thank you for joining us today for this very special occasion. In these extraordinary times, we are not able, obviously, to gather in person, but at DCU we believe that it's important that we continue to celebrate achievement and to honour excellence in the form of events such as this honorary conferring. I'm really delighted to confer the Doctor of Philosophy, Honoris Causa, on Annette Kennedy and on Vivien Lusted. This is DCU's highest honour, and as our colleagues captured so wonderfully in their citations, you are both truly deserving recipients. Congratulations and welcome to the DCU community.
Thank you, Ashley and Anne-Marie, for that wonderful musical performance. And now, it gives me great pleasure to invite our 2 honorees, Dr. Annette Kennedy and Dr. Vivien Lusted, to each give their address.
Chancellor McAleese, President Keogh, Vice President Looney, colleagues, family and friends, I wish to thank Dublin City University for this great honour. I have a feeling of imposter syndrome when I see some of the names of people who were honoured with Dublin City University's highest award. Names like President Clinton, Mother Teresa, Seamus Heaney and Father McVerry, to name but a few. However, I am delighted to accept this honorary doctorate on behalf of the nurses and midwives throughout the world who have shown extraordinary courage during this pandemic. It is a fitting tribute to the 27 million nurses around the world whom I have the honour to represent. Thank you, Dublin City University, for leading the way in recognising nurses in this most difficult of times. 2020 was the year of the nurse and the midwife, and we had many plans to increase the profile of nurses, showcase nursing and celebrate. But COVID-19 changed all that. It changed the world as we know it. But what it did show was the invaluable contribution of nurses and midwives. It showed their courage, their care, their compassion, their competence, their leadership skills, and their resilience in the face of adversity of COVID-19 pandemic. Nurses are central to the curbing of this pandemic as they deliver 90% of the hands-on care. They have saved many lives, but sadly, many thousands have lost their own lives in this pandemic. Our research for nursing associations throughout the world indicate that 80% of nurses are suffering mental health issues. They're suffering burnout, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and COVID-related violence. We estimate that up to 13 million nurses will be needed to fill the gap of the global nursing shortage in the next few years. It is imperative that governments act now to mitigate the risk of increased turnover among nurses and improve nurse retention. Investment, improved pay and conditions, retention strategies are essential if we are to save global health systems. If we have learned a lesson from this pandemic, it is that we need strong, resilient health systems that are prepared for the unknown and will maintain the health of society. The simple fact is that healthy people contribute to healthy economies. The immense commitment and courage that nurses have demonstrated during 2020 and now in 2021, the year of the healthcare worker, make me optimistic for the future. I urge nurses to seize the opportunity to make their voices heard despite the serious challenges ahead. I know we still have challenges, but together, as a society, we can surmount those challenges. We can work together to build a better future and a better world. I have seen the courage of our young nurses, and I am impressed. Nursing is in safe hands. We cannot wait for the opportunities. We have to create and make the opportunities. In the words of Greta Thunberg, the climate activist, no one is too small to make a difference. So together, each one of us, with our 27 million nursing colleagues, can change the world. The future is in our hands. And just to finish with a story told to me by an older lady in Turkey, which I've cut short for today, but I think it's very appropriate to nursing and today's changed world. God sends his angels to earth to check the elements that make up the human race, particularly healthcare professionals. The angels identified, extracted and quantified many elements, namely oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, magnesium, etc. But there was one element in nurses that they could not identify. They couldn't extract it, they couldn't quantify it, and they were upset. They had failed in their task. But they went back to God and told him they had identified all the elements that make up the human race, including our health professionals. But there was one element in nurses that they could not identify. And God said, "You are right, my angels. There is one element only found in nurses that you can't extract. You can't quantify it, and it is difficult to identify. And that element is called compassion. It is the essence of nursing. COVID-19 has shown us that healthcare is more than medical treatment, more than numbers and more than metrics. Central to good health is compassion. Once again, I thank you, Dublin City University, for recognising the nursing profession and their contribution to society. Thank you.
First of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to address you and for awarding this honorary doctorate to me. It really is an honour, which I truly am humbled by, as I am just doing a job I love and am committed to, a job that has given me so many opportunities, and above all, it has allowed me to learn and work alongside true heroes. When I set off on my journey overseas in the early 90s, with 1 year's nursing experience under my belt, I left with a suitcase full of excitement, hope, a lot of naivety, and with a simple wish to be able to use my nursing skills to help others. It sounds so simplistic, but actually it still rings true today. But in trying to help others, I have had the opportunity to meet other like-minded health staff who have the same passion and who, despite often facing insurmountable odds, carry on. They are people just like anyone else, daughters, sons, wives, husbands, and parents. They are part of their communities. They suffer alongside them, even being targeted for being health staff. But during it all, they show what true health professionals are. The respect that I have gained for them over the years is huge. I, with my initial naivety and my wish to help, have had to learn from the bottom up what it means to first have nothing, but to still be willing to give. In the years overseas, I have lived and worked in more than 18 countries, and while I have probably used up all of my 9 lives, I still believe and am committed to the Red Cross movement and what it can achieve. Whether at home or abroad, we all can and are making a difference. In those years away, I have seen many things, some that are heartwarming and give hope, but also I have witnessed devastation and loss. To work alongside a nurse who in the week previously has lost some of their closest family members in a bombing, but who's back at work, sad and angry, but still a true nurse wanting to treat their patients. Or a nurse whose son has been taken by the other side and killed, and is now volunteering to work in a prison hospital which houses his perceived enemy, and who explained to me that after a lot of soul searching, he came to understand that to honor his son and to show empathy, he would treat the enemy, as above all, he was a nurse, and that was his calling. I have learned to do our work, we have to be willing to give a little bit extra. So why, when nurses always give that little bit more, are we still having to discuss and advocate and fight for good working conditions, equality, compensation, training, and just basic recognition for a job well done by our nurses in so many countries? If COVID, which has taken so much from so many, does not make the world wake up to the courage, fortitude, commitment, and the need to support our healthcare workers, then I really do not know what will. Nurses have always been there, often in the background, steadfast, caring, the backbone of our health services. When you think of what Florence Nightingale started all those years ago and where we are today, I think she would be very proud. Her lamp shone in solitude all those many years ago, but our nurses are shining more brightly than ever. Let us keep their lights burning. Let us give them the fuel they need, training, the opportunities, support, and above all, respect. For the many health workers and support staff who have paid the ultimate price and lost their lives, may their legacy not just be written in a history book, but be the momentum to make history and real change. May this time not be forgotten, but be the time to ignite the force of change. Let there be real investment in our health services, in our health workforce, in our nurses. I have said it before, and I will say it again. I am so proud to be a nurse, to be here today to represent all the thousands of other nurses from one end of the globe to the other. They are all the real heroes. They all deserve awards. But for now, let us give them what they are entitled to. That would be a fitting tribute. Thank you.
On behalf of DCU, I am delighted to honour Annette Kennedy and Vivien today. I'd like to thank my colleagues Daniela Lewald and Denise Proudfoot for their citations. I particularly want to thank Dr. Martin Micheál, our Chancellor. Today he is presiding over one of our honorary conferrings for the last time as Chancellor, and I'd like to thank him for both his typically eloquent speech, but also for his wonderful record of service and devotion to the university. As I mentioned earlier, the honorary doctorate is reserved for people who have an exceptional record of excellence in their field and outstanding achievements. Doctors Annette Kennedy and Vivien certainly belong to this category, and their merit for this great honour, they join with names such as Seamus, Sister Stanislaus Kennedy, Mary Micheál, and the great John Hume. It is fitting that we honour Annette and Vivien at this time because of the immense challenges that the pandemic has afflicted on people and healthcare systems worldwide. Nursing and nurses are more critical than ever to society's health and our well-being. We're particularly proud of DCU's student nurses and our colleagues, both academic and professional, for their contribution to the front line in this crisis. By honouring Annette and Vivien, we also hold them up as role models to our students, particularly students in our nursing school. Through their stellar achievements, they have both shown the wide spectrum of positive impact of nursing and nurses on our world. We honoured Annette and Vivien not just because of what they have done in their careers, but critically because of their values. They exemplify DCU's People First principles and the mission of the university to transform lives and societies. We honour them too for their distinguished service to nursing, their extraordinary compassion and their ability to break down barriers. Both Annette and Vivien are part of a wonderful Irish tradition of nursing and healthcare. Irish nurses served alongside Florence Nightingale in her pioneering mission in the Crimean. And indeed, an Irish Sister of Mercy, Nurse Mary Clare Moore, was Nightingale's right-hand woman. In fact, Florence Nightingale considered Moore as her superior in terms of her nursing expertise and her administrative capability. Today, that tradition of Irish leadership in healthcare is continued and exemplified by exceptional people like Annette and Vivien, but by others too, like Dr. Mike Ryan of the World Health Organization and Emer Cook of the European Medicines Agency. In their respective fields, Annette and Vivien have done so much. Vivien has worked tirelessly with and for some of the world's most vulnerable populations in disaster and war zones. At home and internationally, Annette has advanced the nursing profession and sought to empower nurses, not just as healthcare professionals, but as active citizens. The common thread is the courage and determination of their advocacy. They have never been afraid to speak up for what they believe and to be a clear voice for colleagues, for patients, and for those who believe they will not be heard. To borrow the words of our esteemed poet and honorary graduate of DCU, Dr. Paula Meehan, they ward off the darkness and they are bringers of light to this world. For that reason, we honour them both and we thank them for this extraordinary service and leadership. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce internationally acclaimed poet and playwright Dr. Paula Meehan. Paula will read her poem, Crossing the Threshold, which was commissioned by DCU as a celebration of the nursing profession and nurses working in the front line during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you again for joining us today for this really special and wonderful occasion.
This is Crossing the Threshold. When I was a girl, I spent all of 3 months in a fever hospital. A room on my own, far from the city street I lived on. No visitors allowed, but sometimes my mother's face at the observation hatch. She sent in a doll, costumed as a nurse, in a cap and a cape and a little tin watch pinned to her chest. And that doll became confidant, perched on the locker, a patient witness to my natter and jabber, the long days to endure and the longer nights when the stars wheeled past my window and I learnt their patterned journeys across the heavens, though not what their journeys portended. I called her Nurse Harriet, after the real nurse who came to tuck me in with the last bedpan, with the last dose of tablets, with the last thermometer, with the last taking of the pulse and the chance of a story. What my doll did in the war, what she did in the rising, what she did in the trenches, in the rocket to Mars. She was hero, she was avatar, in her cap and her cape and her little tin watch perched on the locker, taking my measure through the hot winding nights of sickness and the slow unspooling weeks to wellness. Those hoard fingertips on the thin skin at my wrist, that cool hand on my head. I fancy I can hear my own blood thrumming through my veins. I must have been lonely. I must have been frightened. It comes back so clearly, this COVID spring, wheeling into the summer of 2020. My nieces are nurses, their beautiful faces marked and welted by masks and visors, their word purses full of medical phrases from the Latin end of the dictionary. The matter of factness of their going out to night shift or day shift is to me the entirely miraculous. When I ask what they'd say to you of their lives now, this: how unnatural to say goodbye through Windows, FaceTime, Zoom, the machines ticking out their cycles, how we find new ways to hold and to be held, how we deepen in mercy and kindness. And this is routine, all this is normal. They step over the threshold, outer to inner, inner to outer. They ward off the darkness. They are bringers of light to this world. Its dazzling confusions, its crystal certainties. They open wide the curtains to the bright star of morning. After long night, between one breath and the next, on a blackbird still praising the earth in her turning.
We are now coming to the conclusion of the ceremony, which I hope has been a most enjoyable and memorable experience. I would like to thank everyone who contributed to the ceremony and to making it special, despite the fact that we could not meet in person. Sin deir le seaamnas chogaram na hallscoile. Tá buíochtaíomh as ucht vor bheith I láthair ling. The formal proceedings of this afternoon's ceremony are hereby concluded.